I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delighted to introduce you to a very talented author by the name of Harvey Johnson. He has written a very important book. It is called Finding Your Niche, a guide for stay-at-home fathers. With an impressive background ranging from law enforcement to private security, this author brings his unique perspective to address the challenges faced by stay-at-home fathers, especially in the context of rising divorce rates in the Black community and other communities as well. Harvey, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
There are so many single dads out there. There are so many dads who now have a larger role in parenting their children. So this is a very, very important guide. What made you decide to write it?
Well, as a father and a husband, I began to notice that when the relationship began to change, and I began to change, and my wife began to change, and the children began to change, that I got these feelings about what I should be doing and how I should fit in. So what I did was I sat down and I created a guide to how I should make sure that I continue in the relationship, because oftentimes as a father, you can get caught up in the breadwinning syndrome. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
And you start to believe that, listen, I could do this whether I live here or not. But no, that's not true. That's why you have to find something that if you're not there, it won't be done. And that'll keep you understanding why you should remain in your relationship or your marriage with your children.
Exactly. You got to find your purpose and own up to your responsibility
And
and
it's
do
a
what's right.
conscious thought.
Yeah.
It's a conscious, it's not something that happens by accident.
Yeah.
That's what the book is all about, to tell fathers that, listen, you have to make a decision. You have to decide what you want to do and then do it, because it's not something that happens by accident. Divorces are by accident most of the time.
Right.
Staying together is on purpose.
Exactly. Exactly. That's great advice. Now, your book is in three phases. Tell us about these.
Well, the first phase is the actual process of getting together, of finding somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and getting ready and making sure you're prepared to be that person.
Mhm.
The second phase, very important phase, which I call the first 5 or 6 years of your relationship or marriage, is how you should build a foundation to continue on. And the last phase is how you begin to find your niche, and you begin to understand that there are things that you have to do in this relationship to make it work, and that if you don't do them, it won't work. And particularly if you have children, because if I can continue to digress, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Um, After the first 5 or 6 years in any relationship, usually children enter the fray.
Mhm.
And oftentimes you hear married couples say, listen, we're gonna, when the children go to college or when they get to school, we're gonna get back to where it used to be. But it's never gonna be back to where it used to be.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that it's never gonna be back to where it used to be. So you have to make the adjustment in the situation you're in, so you can adjust to the situation you're in, and therefore you can accept the fact that you're not going to go back. You can't, there's no way you're going back to the past.
Exactly. And you're no longer a couple. You're no longer two people. You're five people, whether those
That's right.
kids are 2 years old or 30 years old. The dynamics have changed for sure. In your book, you also write about love and lust. George H.W. Bush, the first President Bush, said the most important thing a man can do for his children is love their mother. And
Right.
I always thought that was very, very profound advice. So tell us the advice you offer in your book about lust and love.
Well, just let me mention that I really respect George H.W. Bush. He was married for God knows how many years to a lovely woman. They passed recently, of course, but
Yeah.
he was an excellent human being. But anyway, I just think that sometimes love may be a little overestimated in a relationship. And I give you an example. When you first get married or get together, or because these days there are different definitions for relationships. So I don't want to be discriminatory in any form or fashion.
Yeah.
You lust after that person. And then after a while, you say you're in love, but the lust stops. And sometimes people who are in love, because they don't know how to lust after each other, they don't stay together. So my assumption here, and based on what I've experienced, is that you should lust after your wife or your partner hard all the time, particularly in the first 5 years. And then after that, you'll be able to, the love will carry you through. But if
Mm.
you try to love first, because love is blind now,
Right.
you don't see the flaws. Okay, you don't see the flaws. But if you lust after her and you lust after her hard all the time, and I could explain some other things, but I won't go that far. But anyway, and make it a teenage relationship.
Mm.
Always. That's what lust is all about. And then love will carry you the rest of the way. But if you don't lust long enough, you will lose the lust, and it's not love, it's a habit.
Right.
Sometimes habits can be broken. And that's my goal, is to get people to understand that lust is very important. People say don't lust, love. No, lust is critically important in relationship. And I think it should be an important part of, especially earlier parts of your relationship, because then the love will carry you the rest of the way.
Exactly. That sexual attraction is very, very important. It's what's the glue that keeps couples together through hard times, and is a unique bond that only a man and a woman share together. That's for sure. The other observation is love changes. Love goes from being passionate to compassionate over the years, where at first
Correct.
you're passionate towards each other. And like you said, it's good to sustain that as long as you possibly can. But then it becomes compassionate, that this is a person you care about, love, and you want the best for. And that love extends to your whole family at that point too, don't you think?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you. You saw you you're pretty good at this.
I've done it once or twice. And I've thought about it more than once, because
Yeah.
I've been married and divorced and been through the ringer like everybody else my age.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about certainty. You write a chapter about certainty. What do you mean by certainty?
Well, I think that when people say they get married, they get together and they say, "Well, I trust this person." The Bible says trust in God, all others pay cash. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Trust is such a heavy burden to put on another person. If you feel that that person can do things and you expect it to be done when they be done, that's what keeps you together. People say that people break up because of money and stuff like that. No, it's not that. It's just that you can't depend on a human being. It's important to be able to depend on a person to do they say they're going to do when you expect them to do it, and it's done. That's certainty. But if you think it's trust, it's not trust, because trust is a, if you really thought about it, that's a heavy burden to put on another human being.
Mhm.
And I tell my wife all the time, I said, trusting, fine, trust is fine, but I'm not going to put that on you. But as long as I'm certain that when things need to get done, that you're going to do, or we're going to do together, as long as I'm certain those things are going to happen, then it's going to be fine. Certainty is the key to relationships, because you have to be sure that that person's going to do what they say they're going to do when they're going to do it. And oftentimes people break up because the certainty is broken, not the trust now, the certainty.
Right.
Because even you say trust, even if in people who say that, well, they didn't trust you because you were in, you had an affair or something like that. But that's a part of certainty also, that I'm certain that when you're not here, when I'm not around, and you're not around, that you're going to conduct yourself in a certain way. That's certainty. Trust is a whole nother thing. I only trust in God. I can't, that's too much of a burden to put on another human being.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's got to be ride or die. You got to completely count on that person. And like you
Absolutely.
said, it has to transcend trust. It has to be a certainty that
Yeah.
he or she will do the right thing, in regards to the family, in regards to the relationship. In the book, of course, you use the term the niche. What do you mean by the niche, and why is it crucial in relationships?
It is crucial. Oftentimes, and I could use my own experience.
Mhm.
I made a conscious decision when my children started to grow up to do something that I know that if I wasn't going to, that I didn't do it, it wasn't going to be done. In our relationship, I knew that if I didn't do this for my children, because every man loves it. I don't care who you are, you love your children.
Mhm.
That's something that's your DNA. So
Yeah.
that's something that's a part of you forever. You love them. It's a feeling. Parents know what I'm.
Yeah.
Fathers know what I'm. But
It's an
anyway,
unbelievable connection.
it really is.
Yeah.
And if you put something into your relationship that you know that in dealing with those children, that if you weren't there, it wouldn't get done, you won't walk away from them.
Yeah.
That's finding your niche. And most importantly about this is that your wife will help you find it.
Yeah.
That's what's miraculous. Your wife will make sure that you find your niche and she will encourage it
Yeah.
because she knows that you need that in order to be satisfied with your place in the relationship. And oftentimes men are not satisfied with their place in the relationship, particularly when children are there, because the mother's so nurturing and the
Mm.
children all gravitate towards the mother. And I remember once I went to a meeting with my sons. They were very young at the time. It was a meeting about parenting. And the minister up front asked the kids in the room, one by one, if you had to leave today, who would you go with, your mother or your father? Now, both my children, both my sons said their mother,
Mm.
but I wasn't upset about that. That's silly. But I did know that because of the nurturing aspect of mothering, that they were going to say that anyway. But I do know also that I know that my place in the marriage or in our relationship was important because I know there were certain things that if I didn't do them, they weren't gonna be beneficiaries of those actions. My
Mm.
children, because that's what it is. It's benefits to your children. And I remember my father and my mother separated many, many years ago when I was a child. And there were some things that he used to do with us that she never took up on.
Mm.
And I learned from that lesson that he had his niche and he didn't embrace it. Well, they had some issues, other issues too. That's
Mhm.
another discussion.
Yeah.
But when you find your niche, embrace it.
Yeah.
Embrace it and let your wife help encourage you to do it, because once you find it, you'll never walk away from your children, because you know
Absolutely.
you want to make sure that they have what they need, because you're a father, you love your children, and if you walk away, they won't have that. So you won't you that niche will keep you right there, and it's important. It's
Exactly.
critical.
It is critical, and it's critical for children to have both a mother and a father. And
Yes.
a father can't really be a mother, and a mother really can't be a father. They're two distinct roles. Women teach their children one set of values, one set of norms, one set of behavior. And men teach children differently. They teach them how to play, they teach them how to have courage, they teach them how to stand up. There is an interlap. You can be nurturing as a dad, you are certainly nurturing as a mother, but it's great and so beneficial for a child to grow up in a two-parent home, don't you think?
Oh, it's critical.
Yeah.
It's critical because, like you said, there are two parts to the whole thing, and both mother and fathers are nurturing, but there's some things that the father teaches. I give them myself for an example. My niche. This was my niche. I decided that I was going to take over the children's education,
Mm.
that I was going to go to every open school night, that I was going to talk to all of the teachers, that I was going to make it so that they knew who the father was. My
Right.
wife, on the other hand, was a school teacher herself. So
Mhm.
oftentimes when there were things happening in my children's schools, it was happening in her school.
Right.
So she couldn't be there. But so it was sort of something that happened almost by accident. But the thing is that I never missed an open school night for 22 straight years.
Amazing.
When there was something happening at the school, I was always there because the teachers need to see the fathers.
Oh yeah.
That's
Oh yeah.
critical.
Right.
And
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 the
I thought
father
that,
needs to be connected to the school. I
oh,
mean, that's part of it as well. Yeah. All
I used
great
to go
advice.
I
What's that?
used to go to my children's school on days when there was nothing happening, when I wasn't doing anything, just to walk the halls. The
Yeah.
principals let me do it, just
Yeah.
to make sure that things were happening in there. And I used to watch my children in the classroom. They didn't even know I was in the school,
Yeah. That's
because
nice.
that's the kind of thing you have to do. Once you find your niche, you'll build. I built on that niche, and
Yeah.
it became all consuming. So it was really it's really, and my children are much better today because all of my children are doing well now.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Well, you
they're
sound
all
like a
grown.
great father. You've written a great manual for other fathers. It's called Finding Your Niche, a guide for stay-at-home fathers. It's written by Harvey Johnson. It's a wonderful book. It is a how-to guide in many ways on how to raise your children within the context of a family that will empower your children, and perhaps save your marriage along the way. Harvey, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
I appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good night.
I appreciate it as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.